What is up, YouTube people? Welcome to week 4 of college football. Coming off a great week last week, I ended up picking 75% last week. That is if you took Iowa at a pick 'em instead of the 1.5. Once again, where you took them at. So moving into week 4 this week, we got some tough matchups, and especially the spreads. I think the bookies have done a great job this week on the spreads, if not even in their favor a little bit. So this might be one of those weeks where you might consider buying points. I definitely am considering buying points. But with that, let's roll straight into these week's picks. Starting with the first pick of the week is a Friday night pick, and I usually try to avoid these Friday night games just because traditionally in the past I have always had a problem with the Friday night picks. They never seem to go the way you think they're going to go. But this week we've got Boise State playing Air Force at home. And so my first pick of the week is Boise State. Boise State at home, they have always traditionally played very well there. There's a tough place to go play in that blue field. And Boise State's 20 in the country. They're starting 3-0. They're playing Air Force. And, Air Force looks pretty good. They've had some pretty good games. But I think Boise State's played a little bit higher caliber teams than Air Force has. Right now, Boise State's getting up 7 points to Air Force. And I think at home with the home field advantage, I think that Boise is just going to have the edge here. They just always do well at home. So I'm going to go with the first pick of the week. I'm going to go with Boise State. Moving right on to my next pick, Boston College at Rutgers. Now, I know Boston College last week surprised everyone with that Friday night game and just got completely blown away by Kansas, who had been no offense the first 2 games and just came out of nowhere and just blasted Boston College. But even with that, I think Boston College away will be able to cover these 8 points at Rutgers. Rutgers is, let's face it, they got the first win in 11 games this year. They have the longest losing streak in the nation. And though they have made some improvements to their program, I think that this week Boston College is going to be out for blood. I think they're embarrassed by their loss. I think they regrouped, and maybe they didn't take that game seriously. Maybe, I don't know, maybe the Kansas got lucky. Where I think if you're giving me Boston College less than 10 points against Rutgers, pretty much anybody against Rutgers, I'm going to take Boston College. So second pick is Boston College. Moving right on to my third pick of the week. And this is another one that had a tough loss last week. One of those unexpected losses. And that was Michigan State. I think Michigan State slipped last week. No one expected Michigan State to lose that game the way they did to Arizona State. At home. They only mustered 7 points of offense. And I know that Michigan State has always been a defensive team, and they like to keep the score low, but they only 7 points, 10-7 against Arizona State. That was pretty terrible. So I think this week Michigan State's got a little bit of something to prove, much like Boston College does. That they're still ranked, or at least they're close to being ranked. I think they're going ahead and they're playing Northwestern this week, and they're giving up. Right now it's about 9 points. The line's moved a little bit. Even though they're on the road, I think Michigan State's going to come into Northwestern, who is, once again, has been terrible over the years, beaten many, many times by most teams in the Big Ten. So I think Michigan State's going to come in here, and I think they're going to look at the loss last week, and I don't know. The coaches must have had them running a million drills this week because their offense was just completely sluggish. Like I said, they're generally a very good defensive team, but their offense was just terrible last week. So I think Michigan State's they're gonna have a little something to prove, and I don't think Northwestern is going to score more than 7 points. And I'm gonna have a feeling that Michigan State's going to score at least 21 in this situation. So I'm going to go with Michigan State. Moving on to the next pick of the week, and that will be Coastal Carolina. And this is more of me not so much picking Coastal Carolina as picking who they're playing against, which is UMass. And UMass is the worst team in football, at least FBS. And they're 0-3, and not even the 0-3. They're nearly destroyed every single game. Coastal Carolina is on the road, but they're giving up 16.5 points. I think Coastal Carolina, they played a great game at Kansas. I mean, they beat Kansas, a much bigger program, and every program was better than UMass. So I'm going to take Coastal Carolina. I think much of the United States agree with me right now. The covers it's one of the top covers. I think 75% of the nation is expecting Coastal Carolina to cover that 16.5 point spread. So this pick, I'm taking Coastal Carolina Chanticleers. All right, guys, and the fifth pick of the week, I'm taking UNC. UNC is at home against one of my favorites, Appalachian State, who was just an offensive monster, and even had top 5 defense last year in the nation. But UNC's at home, and they're giving up less than 3 points. They're a 2.5 point favorite. And much as I am a fan of Appalachian State, I think Appalachian State is amazing for the division they're in and the caliber of people they play. But UNC's tough. I mean, they beat Miami. They just play in the ACC. They play a lot bigger schools, better competition. They're at home. And if you're giving me UNC with less than a field goal advantage here, it's tough. Like, this is a tough week, and I think UNC is not a prolific scorers like Appalachian State is, but I think Appalachian State scores so well because they outclass their opponents. And I don't think this will happen. And UNC, I mean, they've done a lot with that program. With Mac Brown there, they went there and they redid most of the stadium, they redid the locker rooms. I mean, they're pushing to be a football school. I mean, traditionally they're a basketball school. Everyone knows that what the Tar Heels has done in basketball. But I think this year they're really trying to become a dominant football team in the ACC. I think they see what Clemson's done, how they've turned around their program, and they brought in some big names. And they're spending a lot of money. They're spending a lot of money on the football facilities. I mean, they're obviously gearing towards becoming a dominant football team. So UNC -3, 2.5, depends where you get the book at. I think I'm going to take UNC with this one. Moving on to my next pick. My next pick is UCF, once again, Central Florida. Now, they've got a tough game this week. They're starting to move the spreads up. They're playing away. They're playing at Pittsburgh, Pittsburgh's only 1-2, but Pittsburgh's scrappy. And think about Pittsburgh. They get beat, but they've always done a really good job of not getting completely destroyed or blown away by teams, especially at home. Right now, UCF has given up 11.5 points. And this is one of those perfect situations, the teaser or the buy down. I mean, personally, I bought the spread down to 9.5. I think it ended up being like 9.5 minus 170, which to me, UCF minus 10 is much better than minus USC because I'm minus 11.5 because you're looking at football numbers. You're going to win the game by probably 10, 13, or 14. But even though, I mean, once again, I think I said last week that UCF, if you give me them minus 14 points or less against any other team other than a top 10 team, I'm going to take UCF. And I'm going to stick with those words this week. And I think the UCF's offense is they're just too good. I think they're too fast. I mean, Pittsburgh, like they play a good defense. They usually try to keep the score low and they run the ball a lot and utilize the clock. But I mean, UCF is just so explosive. I think they'll be able to cover the spread. So once again, I got to go with University of Central Florida here to cover. Moving on to my next pick, that is North Carolina State against Ball State. I'm taking North Carolina State in this one. They're 2-1, another ACC team, and it's more of a situation like with Coastal Carolina and UMass. It's who they're playing. Ball State is year in and year out been a very miserable program. I have bet against them more times than I have probably taken breaths in my life, which is nearly every game. Ball State's on the road. The current spread is 19.5. I think this is when I bought down to 16.5 because I think North Carolina State, though their offense is very sluggish, I think at home against a much smaller school, a much weaker division school, I believe that North Carolina State being in Power 5, that I think they'll be able to pull out a win here, get their record of 3-1 overall. I mean, it's once again, it's just more than who they're playing. Ball State, they're pretty miserable, and they're so used to losing. I don't think they expect to come in to win this game at all. So I'm going to go with North Carolina State at home. Which brings me to my last pick of the week, and that is Oregon at Stanford. My last pick of the week is probably my favorite pick of the week. It's at 10.5 right now. I bought it down to 9.5 because Stanford, I thought they were going to have a decent program this year. They had a lot of the pieces that looks like they've fallen into place for them, but they're 1-2, and though they've had some tight games, I think Oregon has only had one loss to Auburn, who's a top 10 team, by the way. I think Oregon's offense is it's too much. It's too fast. I mean, they have it every year. You always know Oregon, that's what they do is score. I mean, they score, but unfortunately they usually give up a lot of scores. But I don't know if Stanford's going to be able to hang with Oregon in this one. If you give me Stanford, giving up, or Stanford getting only 10 points, I don't think that's going to be enough. I think Oregon's going to go out here and they're going to put up 35, 38 points, and though it'll be close, I think Stanford's going to lose steam in the second half. I think Oregon doesn't lose steam. I think if anything, Oregon seems to score better in the second half to me. So even though it's Stanford's at home and they have the home field advantage, I mean, Oregon, they're fighting to be up there. I mean, to be recognized. I mean, they're 16th in the nation, and I think they want to be a program that's the top 10 in the nation. And when some of the dicing programs this year, I mean, if they would stop ranking every SEC team in the top 10 just because they're SEC, I think Oregon could probably break into the top 10. And they had that tough loss against Auburn, which was a miracle, if anything. But still, if you give me Oregon at basically 9.5 points, if you buy it down, if you can get it at 9.5 at your book, I'm going to take Oregon. I think this is the week that they're going to put a nail in the coffin and just say, look, this is who we are. We're for real. We're not just a scoring team. We can play. So probably my favorite pick of the week, I don't know if it's just because I want them to be, we're going to pick Oregon. Well, guys, that wraps up my picks for the week. Like I said, this is a tough week. This is some tough spreads this week. This is the week I bought down most games by a point and a half to football numbers 16.5, 9.5, 6.5. This is a great week to take advantage of the ability to buy down spreads. You don't always have to go straight against the blanket spread that you see at the book or you see online. I mean, they might offer it. They know what they're doing. When they put 17.5, like you buy it at 16.5, give up a little bit of juice to get the better point spread. That's what I recommend to people all the time. Just don't go in there and just blanket take the spreads. I mean, if you think, 19 is too much, I think they could win by 16, then get it at 16. I mean, it might be minus 180, minus 160, 150, but the point of this is to get some winning bets. It's not that, the obviously just play against what the book gives you every single time. And I think this is a prime example. This week, a lot of these games are close, point and a half off, 2 points off, where it's worth to spend the juice. I mean, another game I didn't include was LSU because it's at 24.5. I bought LSU all the way down to 20.5. I mean, I bought 3 or 4 points, depending on where you got it this week, because I think LSU can cover 20.5 against Vanderbilt, but 24, that's a little dicier. But wrapping up week 4, I hope you guys have had a great first 3 weeks. I'm doing pretty well this year. And remember, as always, winners know when to quit. Good luck betting.